Welcome to the Working Tools Podcast, where today we will be interviewing Most Worshipful Brother Steve Martin, Grand Master of Masons in Washington, and his lovely wife, Robin.
Ladies and gentlemen, brethren all, welcome to the Working Tools Podcast, a casual conversation around Freemasonry. First, it's important to note that our thoughts and opinions are our own and do not reflect those of our Grand Lodge or respective craft or concordant bodies. Please connect with us and ask questions via our website at theworkingtoolspodcast.com.
Today on the Working Tools Podcast, we have our usual host of hosts. We have Worship Brother Stephen Chung, who's a member of Prince Charles Lodge number 153 in Kelowna, British Columbia. Brother Craig Graham, who's in Kalamaka Lodge in number 160, in British Columbia. And Very Worship Brother David Colbeth of King Solomon Lodge number 60 in Auburn, Washington. I'm Matt Appel. I'm a member of Mill Creek 243 in Montlake Terrace, Washington. And we have our special guest this evening, Most Worshipful Brother Steve C. Martin, the Grand Master of the Most Worshipful Grand Lodge of Free and Accepted Masons of Washington, and his lovely lady Robin, who, if I may interject at this point, I believe is the first female guest we've ever had on the show, at least since I've been on it. She's the first female guest. So welcome.
Well, does the Conference of Grand Masters count?
I wasn't on that.
Oh, that's right. Oh, sorry, Robin.
The first,
you'll always be first in our hearts.
The first lady.
There we go.
First lady, yes.
All right. So, well, first of all, thank you, Grandmaster and Robin, for appearing on the show. We appreciate it.
Yes. Oh, yes. To update that. Yes, we have had Job's daughters on here before. So not the first female, but the first lady. Yes.
Well, you're slipping in the standings.
First lady. That works.
First lady.
Yeah. There we go.
Yes.
So I guess we have generally interview the Grandmaster at the sort of the beginning of his term, see where he thinks things are going, what he'd like to accomplish, and then we sort of do a exit interview, if you will, at the end, where we like to ask you how you feel things went, what you would like to keep working on, what you think went well, what is your overall impression of the last year or so of Masonry in Washington?
A couple of things that in the last couple of months people have asked me that have, I think the answer has surprised them. I had one brother about a month ago ask me if I was counting down the days yet until the annual communication. And I said, absolutely not. I don't want this to end. I have had the time of my life this year, and so has Robin. It's just been so enjoyable to be the Grand Master of Washington and to get out and do as much traveling and meeting and everything that we have. I still feel that way. I think we're down to like 3 weeks or something like that. And, I don't want it to end. I keep joking with the Deputy Grand Master that, I control the agenda. So when we get to 1:15 on Saturday, I'm just going to skip elections. And
I think the Jurisprudence Committee might not approve of that.
Well, you know what? They can tell me that I did something wrong, but they can't tell me no. So
That's exactly right. It's too late by that point.
Yeah, but that's one of the things. And then the other thing somebody asked me, what surprised me the most about being Grandmaster? And again, it's almost the same thing. It's how much fun it has been and how much I have enjoyed the job. There's, as everybody is well aware, there's things that you have to deal with that are not pleasant, that are not fun, but the good has far outweighed the bad. It's been a great year.
I'm glad to hear that,
Yes,
even with the Grand
totally
Irritator.
agree. What was that?
I'm glad to hear that even with the Grand Irritator, you've managed to overcome that. Yeah, so again, this is off topic, but Robin, I seem to remember you were having a project of trying to take pictures of all the lodge doors. Did you get them all?
I have most of them. There's some that I'm going to have to do online and get a snapshot from online, but it's almost done.
Cool. Yeah. There was as you probably just figured out, Robin was taking pictures of all the lodge building doors that as the two of them were traveling around the state. So Did you get some foreign ones too, or when you were in Scotland or whatever, or did you just do the state?
Well, this is just Washington.
When my daughter was in Vienna, she took a picture of a lodge door while she was there. So I haven't been there, but it looked nice.
Nice. That's awesome.
I did take a picture of the door in Scotland, though.
I noticed on one of your Facebook posts recently, which has been many, which is also excellent. It's so nice to have that communication and updates on what's happening and your lives and all that. But I saw one where it was kind of the two of you walking hand in hand away from the camera and a kind of a sunset type view. And I just thought, what a perfect picture of the two of you. It's been so fun to see you both together. And well, there's a lot of wives that or partners that are out on the road with their Masons or Grandmasters. I've been a Mason 16 years and have gotten to see a few different versions over the years, but it's been really special watching you two go through that. So just kudos to you both, and Robin for sticking in there.
I've had so much fun this year, and getting to travel and meet so many different Masons, and when he goes golfing with them, I go along and either walk or drive the cart and get a little crazy driver sometimes, but it's a blast, and I've met some amazing people.
Yeah, that particular picture, David, was when we were walking back to our hotel after we had our big group dinner for the group that was in Scotland. And we're just at the base of the hill from the Edinburgh Castle. And as we're walking back, that was actually our tour director took that photo and sent it to us, and it was pretty cool.
Very cool, very very touching, and again apropos of what we've all have seen together and then individually on your end. I just the other day too, I saw Robin was taking a picture on the Grand Lodge porch. It seemed, she just was taking a beautiful picture of the flowers and the day and all that. And I know that she's waiting outside for the Grandmaster while he's at XCOM or whatever. We all know what's going on, but it's fun to see your engagement in this whole experience too, Robin.
Yep, it's been totally worth it, and I wouldn't have changed anything this year. It's just been amazing. And
I have thanked her several times for the amount of information that she has put on Facebook about our travels and what we've been doing. I jokingly call her my social media director, and she has been. She's been out there everywhere that I've gone and taking pictures. And when I don't have her, I forget to take pictures so people don't get to see them. But it's just it's a great team, and yeah, it's been fun.
Speaking of teams, you're still the boss at the moment, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
So you have a team. Can I ask them to do one thing on your Grand Lodge website where I read your address? It referred to seeing your itinerary, your calendar. So I go to the calendar, and every time I want to look up details, it says see Grandview, and I don't know what Grandview is, and there's no link to Grandview.
Well, and that's actually something that I just started probably 2 months ago or 3 months ago with all of the issues that we've had with security and with bad things happening to good Masons. What I decided to do is I went through that Google Calendar and I just put in the events. And all of the details I put on the calendar in the Grandview app, which is our members database, and it's private. And I understand that it's difficult for people that don't have access to Grandview, but I felt that, when I had an event on there and said, hey, at 2:00 in the afternoon, there's going to be 50 Masons at this event in the public, and although I don't want to be, that secretive or closed off or whatever you want to call it, I also didn't want to be responsible if something were to happen. You know what I mean? So I get what you're saying, and I don't know how we're going to deal with that in the future, but it's just a decision that I made Again, about 2 months ago, I went through and I took out all of the specific details in the public facing calendar. And all those details are in the Masons only facing calendar.
Well, that makes a lot of sense and explains that. Okay, that's that I was wondering what Grandview was, and it was like,
Yeah.
I guess I can't find that anywhere. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
that is our internal database that we use. And there's a lot of I think there's 43 jurisdictions in the United States that use it. So
right, okay, yeah, okay. So I remember these two talking about Grandview before, and so now I get it's coming back to me now. But as I was looking at it, I was like, I can't find that.
And maybe, we should put in something like, for details, email grandmaster@freemason-wa.org or something like that, instead
Yeah,
of just Grandview.
yeah.
I'll talk to Jimmy about that.
We hadn't thought about those security type issues up here in our jurisdiction yet, and we just populated the Grandmaster's itinerary for the next year, and
Yeah.
so it's like, well, we haven't had any reference to our calendar being public that way, but the benefits of using the calendar have been tremendous. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, it's kind of I guess err on the side of caution is what you were doing. So that makes total sense.
Unfortunately.
Right.
And our Grand Marshal this year has really set the bar on sending out information, and the next Grand Marshal has a lot to live up to.
Yeah, well, if you've got somebody doing the communications, well, then that's half the battle, right? So
yeah, our Grand Marshal this year, every Sunday, or almost every Sunday, he sends out an email to the entire Grand Lodge team about the upcoming events of the Grand Master, and it's got all the details in there, and it's worked out really well. I've had a lot of people tell me that has been very useful, very helpful, and they hope to see it continue. And all kidding aside, Matt, I'm not trying to put you on the spot or anything, but it is very, very helpful to get that information out.
And I know ever since he put all the data on Grandview, which I can't see,
Yeah.
I use Matt's emails. It's like, okay, we're going to be here on this day, this time. And so it's really helped me.
yeah, well, we do that in our jurisdiction, in our district here. I send out weekly communications to our district to let them know what's going on. And so when I don't, and I decide to go to, Italy for 2 weeks, and I come back and I plug in my SIM card, I get a whole bunch of messages going, well, what's happening? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? Right. So, it's really refreshing to know that people are paying attention and actually using the service that's there. So, but moving on to another thing, if I might, in reading your address there, you started off with touching on the long range planning and how the previous Grand Master had revived it, and you were going to try and keep that going. And I was curious as to how that transpired throughout your year.
I feel, and I will defer to David and Matt to give their opinion as well, but I feel like the executive committee, the elected Grand Lodge officers have done a really good job on promoting the long range plan that was developed, and I think at every district meeting it came up at least in one or two different conversations at every district meeting that we had. And we really focused on, this is the 6 supports of the long range plan. And we're not asking you as a lodge or you as a district or whatever to go full bore on all 6 of these to begin with. Pick one, focus on one, and start your long range plan, and then add in the others as you can. And it goes back to the old adage, you can lead a horse to water. So we talked about it, we've pushed it, and I have seen in my travels, I've seen a lot of lodges that are actively using the 6 supports long range plan. And I've seen a lot of lodges that are using it and don't even realize they're using it. So I think the message is getting out there, and I think by us talking about it, even if they don't understand what the 6 supports are, they're hearing the words, they're hearing the process, and they're taking action on it.
Right. And getting it adoption throughout such a large jurisdiction does take time. There's always your laggards and your early adopters. So it's nice to hear that you've had some good success with that.
And I know, David, you're very much in tune with the 6 supports. How have you seen the 6 supports? I'm going to turn the interview back on you guys here for a second.
It is a little near and dear to my heart, since we were part of the development team on that. And it was disappointing to see it kind of shelved, if you will. But I don't know if you saw me in the back of the room last year, not this last year, but a year ago last year when we were at the Lodge Leadership Retreat. I was in the back with my arms raised up. Finally these guys are, and I was so happy to hear talk of it. And so we literally just had a leadership retreat meeting today in review of this one we had in March, and there were several comments that they appreciated. And I don't think it was my comment. Several comments that they appreciated having the 6 supports discussed before each training session started, and how that training session would apply to the 6 supports, or which ones. Specifically, I happen to be worship master again this year in my lodge in King Solomon, and I hope that, like you said, other lodges are doing this as well. We decided to address a single support for the year, and I'm every meeting, like a book and record to the guys that are every meeting, but there's sometimes we have visitors that attend. And so I explain what we're doing. We have a thing we call Shrink the Lodge, where we get together on the floor and have a discussion about things. And in that beginning of that Shrink the Lodge, I decided to focus on technology this year because it's a little more difficult. It's probably one of the harder ones. And we're relatively tech savvy. We have a website, we have a digital calendar, we have internet, some of the basic stuff that some lodges don't even have. Right. But what else can I bring to our lodge on technology side? And so I call it 2 minutes of tech. Just before our Shrink the Lodge begins and our discussion begins, I bring up something of interest on the interwebs. The first couple of meetings were Grandview, showing how to get into Grandview. And did you know there's a resource page with all this information? Did you know there's a members list with all of our members? Some basics about Grandview. People, I'd turn to look, and people were like, oh, they didn't know that was available or didn't remember. Then I've gone to the Grand Lodge website. Did you know you can go here and register for events, and you can get news and information about what's happening? You can see the Grand Master's calendar, those different things. And this last one, I showed the example of phoenixmasonry.org has a great Mackey's online encyclopedia. I said, have you ever been researching for something, thinking about wanting to research something, we're not sure where to start? If you don't have Mackey's, the 3 or 4 volume set on your shelf, you can always go to the internet and this phoenixmasonry.org and search for it. And we were talking about tiling. What does it mean to tile? The lodge, yourself, because we say that why is tiling the first great care of Masons when convened and the last great care? And so there's lots of discussion about what tiling meant, not just the room, but ourselves and what we're supposed to do. And so anyway, you can go to Mackey's and other places on the web and look. And so technology and using that, I'm hoping next year, our next master, I know he will, I don't know which one he's going to focus on, but we'll continue to use the 6 supports. Bill Stefan, he's a past master, and so he'll be good. So yeah, it's been really effective for us. I hope other lodges are using it too.
And I, like I said, I think they are. There's some that have specifically mentioned it, and there's others that have talked about what they were doing. And if I can remember which support it ties to in my head, I mentioned that's one of the 6 supports, and that's a great membership experience thing that you're doing as part of the 6 supports. And, so trying to, again, keep pushing it, keep it in the forefront that it's really, I think that we still need to work on expanding on it, but it is really a great framework for how to improve your lodge.
That's excellent. Your next thing in there, I think, was a great step towards improving lodges and keeping them proficient. When you're talking about the warden certificates and the master certificates and excellence in ritual, I mean, you're right. They have to be proficient to get chartered, and how many years later can they actually prove that proficiency and
Yeah.
do the work. And I was actually really intrigued by the certificate program there, where you earn points and excellence in ritual award earning points. I thought that
And
was pretty good.
I actually changed that a little bit because it proved to be maybe a little too confusing. And so rather than make it a point system, I took what would get you those points and made those the requirement. So I have changed it a little bit. For instance, to get the warden certificate, you have to be able to open and close on all 3 degrees from every speaking chair in the lodge. And then to get the master certificate, you have to be able to do all of that. Plus, you have to be able to confer all 3 degrees as the master. You have to know the geometry lecture, the apron lecture, at least one of the degree lectures, and then the charges for all 3 degrees. And I think that's it. But that, in essence, would get you close to that 700 or 1,000 or whatever it was. So I tried to simplify it because there were people, and myself included, when I tried to explain it, that it was a little more convoluted than it needed to be. So I simplified it.
That's good. It made it probably that much more attractive for guys to pay attention to, the simpler it is, right?
I hope so. It's actually one of my Grandmaster's recommendations this year is to add that into the Washington Masonic Code as our proficiency program.
That's awesome. I think it's awesome. Focusing on those types of things is really important, because over the years, you can tell when lodges get slacking on those things, and unfortunately, you see that where they are getting slack in that, they don't seem to have the same attendance and the same amount of visitors and whatnot, right? So that's really good.
Well, at the Conference of Grand Masters, the chairman of the conference is a past Grand Master from New York. And he actually stood up in front of the entire body of Grand Masters and said that he was one of the Grand Masters that 20 years ago, or 30 years ago, whenever it was, really pushed to make it easier to become a Mason, to make it easier to become proficient as a Mason, and to make everything easier because our numbers were so bad, they wanted to increase the numbers. And he stood up there in front of the entire body and said, and we were wrong. It didn't improve Masonry. It had the opposite effect. And so I'm trying to, again, I've been pushing ritual, I've been pushing travel, I've been pushing, trying to get another recommendation that I put on the books this year is to, and it came up probably 8 years ago, to make proficiency in lodge management, which is our first step of the proficiency program, a requirement before you can be master of a lodge. And when that came up before, I remember talking to brothers about it then, and they were saying, it's a good idea, but my lodge right now, if that was to go into effect, we would not have a master and we would lose our charter. And so I changed it just a little bit. So it's, you must have proficiency in lodge management or special dispensation from the Grand Master. If you simply don't have somebody that can do it, but you can show to the Grand Master that you're working towards it, I think the Grand Master can give you dispensation. You can still keep your lodge functioning. But as I said in some of the district meetings, by God, you better be working towards it.
So on that note, having highlighted a couple of your achievements and projects for the year, we're heading up to the end of an episode. We try and keep them to about half an hour. So I guess my first question is, Grandmaster / Robin, are you willing to stay for another half hour or so that we could record another episode?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. So yeah, well, because I know we wanted to talk about your big charity gala that you had at the beginning of the well, it wasn't quite the beginning of the Masonic year, but close to the beginning of the Masonic year, and the traveling gavel got around the state and that sort of thing. So
Bless you.
Bless you, Matt.
Bless you.
Boy, he's quick on that mute button. That was good.
this isn't the first time I've had this problem. This stuff. So I guess I'm wrapping up then. So thank you, Grandmaster, for coming, and Robin, my personal opinion, I'm probably biased, is that every time I see Robin at an event, it's just a little bit brighter, because I know it's not just going to be a bunch of old guys saying the same things again. At least we have someone interesting to talk to. Not that you're not interesting, Grandmaster. I'm certainly not. But so thank you all for being here this evening. And on behalf of myself and Craig and Steve and David, we thank you all for listening to the Working Tools podcast. Goodbye.